Hey guys, in response to the Pool of Knowledge video, the last video on the how-to playlist, I had a few comments from people talking about their rights. You know, I have the right to make my own decisions, and I don't want to do it. I wouldn't want to do it that way in Japan, and I want to do what I want to do. And that's actually been a quite. Those sort of comments have appeared on a number of the how-to videos. It's not an uncommon reaction to some of the stuff about Japanese culture, and it got me to thinking about it. And the conclusion I came to is that there's no real rights that I had in Australia or I've had in other countries I've been in that I don't have in Japan. And I'm sure there's some, like for example, I know Americans have a right to carry firearms wherever they want to and that sort of thing. And I'm sure there's some small rights like that, but of course the firearms one isn't relevant in Japan because it's not violent. But in day-to-day living, I couldn't think of any rights that I've had in other countries I've been in that I don't have in Japan. So it's not about not having rights, it's just more about that it seems that Japanese people recognise that they have to live, or that they do live, in a society in amongst other people, and that they do things with other people. So that might be, you know, one other person, two other people, 20 other people, 1,000 other people. They do things like a festival with 10,000 other people. So they seem to recognise that because they live in amongst lots of people and do things in amongst lots of people, they seem to recognise, or that with other people, they seem to recognise that for them it's better to give up some rights sometimes for the sake of other people, for the sake of harmony, or for the sake of somebody else's comfort, or just give up some rights sometimes for other people. So of course you can come to Japan and do whatever you want to do. As long as you don't break any laws, you can do whatever you want to do, you know? Make all your own, do everything exactly the way you want to do it, and don't have to listen to anybody else. As long as you don't break any laws, that's fine. But the way they see it is that, you know, that sort of thinking would be seen as selfish and perhaps even childish. So just some examples. So for example, a group of 4 people going to a restaurant. I don't like seafood, and they say, you know, oh, let's go to that seafood restaurant. Now, the other people are all really keen for that. Now, I don't like seafood. I could say, oh, look, sorry, I don't like seafood. I don't want to go there. But it's better just to go, oh, great idea, let's go. And try to find something on the menu that I do like, you know? It's just better. And what happens is these guys often find out too, when you do things like that in Japan, people admire you for it, because they quite often find out later that you've done something that you didn't want to do. And when they do find out, the way they repay us for that is in endless ways. And I'm not saying that we should do the right thing so that we get benefit. I'm just saying that if you look at the consequences, if you come to Japan and do your own thing all the time and worry about my rights, and I do what I want to do, that's fine. But you'll find the consequences will be really different. Because people like that, like I said, they'll be seen as selfish and maybe even seen as childish, like a kid, you know. Okay, it's time to go. I don't want to go. Or, you know, we're going to that place. I don't want to go to that place. We risk being seen like that. And if that's the case, you know, people here are not judged, but people here are seen by the people they associate with. So if our behaviour here, and this goes for most of the how-to videos, if our behaviour here isn't seen as good, people will be more cautious about inviting us places and doing things with us and that sort of thing. They'll be nice to us, you know, but they'll be less likely to do things with us, you know. And the opposite is also true. If you come to Japan and you know, give up your rights a little bit and do the right thing by other people and think about other people and are less selfish than perhaps we are in other countries, the consequences of that are really positive. And just a couple of really fast examples. I think I mentioned maybe on the first how-to video actually, but I was offered some very crappy apartments when I first came to Japan. Actually 6 months after I came to Japan, I wanted an apartment, and I went looking, and the ones that were offered for foreigners weren't real good. a friend of mine here heard, a guy that had only been a friend for 6 months, when he heard that I was looking for an apartment, he made some phone calls to some people he knew, and I ended up with a really nice apartment. Another guy found out I was looking for a car, and at that stage getting a car was a bit difficult for me because I didn't have a couple of the things that I needed to get a car, and all of a sudden, you know, a car was available to me. And when I came time to change visa, someone was reading through the piece of paper and realised that I needed a guarantor, a Japanese guarantor. That's common for some visas. And he volunteered. He said, "Oh, you need a guarantor? I'll do it." And, you know, things like that, if they see our behaviour is what, you know, normal in Japan, correct behaviour, that's the sort of thing people will do. If they see us as, you know, selfish or childish or behaving in ways that aren't acceptable here, you know, they won't even invite us to parties probably because they don't want us there where we might embarrass them in front of their friends. So I'm not saying do the right thing because you'll get benefits. That's obviously not a good motivation to do the right thing, but I'm just saying, you know, those people that are concerned about their rights, you've got the right. You know, if you come to Japan, you've got the right to behave however you want, you know, as long as you don't break any laws. But your experience here won't be as good, and I'm sure I've said that on a number of other how-to videos. Your experience will not be as good, but you have a choice. And, you know, again, you know, some people have said on different videos that I make excuses for Japan or I justify Japan or something. I don't think that's what I'm doing. I think I'm just saying this is the way I see it, this is the way it seems to be to me. So I'm accepting it. Because, you know, coming to Japan and not accepting it and complaining it shouldn't be like that, it shouldn't be like that, I shouldn't have to do that, I shouldn't have to do that, why do I have to do that? I mean, you can do that if you want to, but, you know, I mean, I know people that did that in my home country, and I'm sure you know people like that too in your own country who are always complaining and why is it like this and why is that like this, and, you know, to me that's just a pointless way of thinking. You know, like, I'm not going to change Japanese society. I don't want to change Japanese society, but even if I didn't like it, and there is some things I don't like, but I can't change them. So you've either got to go with the flow, which is really the best way to go. Go with the flow and blend and just go okay and do what you've got to do, you know. Act like an adult and sorry, but you know, there's an element of that. There's an element of that. Oh, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. You know, it's sort of pointless. It's sort of pointless. We're better off going, okay, well, that's what I've got to do and doing it, you know. And there's things, I mean, in our own apartments, in our own homes, in Japan, obviously, you know, we can do whatever we want as long as it doesn't disturb anyone else. But when we're with a group of people, and honestly, I think there's a lot of people that just wouldn't like to live here, and that's the case. People come here for a year, and many people come here for a year and go home after 3 months because it's too difficult. And for a lot of people, all this stuff on all the how-to videos is just not worth it to them. They go, nah, it's just too much, it's too much. And they go back because it's easier to live in their own country than it is to live here. So for some people, all this stuff, all this how-to stuff, is not worth it to them. They go, nah, it's just too difficult. I'm going home. It's easier easier in my home country. But to some people, it's worth it, you know. And to me, it's worth it. I prefer to live in a society where people think about other people, you know. And it is difficult because sometimes, you know, I don't want to do something and I've got to do it, or I do want to do something and I'm not allowed to do it or shouldn't do it. So it requires more discipline. But the end result's worth it, you know. I'm driving on a main road here, and there's small side streets that come off to the side. And in Australia, if you're on one of those little side streets trying to get into a busy made road, you could be there forever, you know, because everybody goes, I've got the right of way, you know, I've got the right of way. So they don't let you in, and you can just sit there forever until you get some kind soul, you know, 20 minutes later lets you in. Here, it doesn't happen like that. Here, people spot you waiting in a little side street and they're on a busy road and they back off and flash their lights and after you. You know, and it's just a small example. There's just examples like that every day of people doing, you know, kind and considerate things that they don't necessarily want to do perhaps, but they'll do it for us, you know, and in return we're always doing things for other people, and, you know, to some people it's really worth it. But, Yeah, so anyway, about the my rights thing, yeah, we've got all the same rights in Japan, but, you know, it's better to... I think the biggest right you have, is not to come. And I don't want to sound harsh, but really to some of the comments I get, or some of the messages, or some of the things I hear, you know, in response to some of my videos, that's often what I think. I think, well, obviously it's not the place for you. You know, for some people and their reactions to the things that happen in Japan, I can just tell, you know, that person wouldn't last here. They just wouldn't like it. So anyway, more videos coming soon.